Hi everyone, I'm my Swedish whiskey girl, and today we're trying some mystery drams, which I'm so excited about. So tonight I'm gonna take part in a tasting, which is a mystery tasting with Kilchoman. So the way that they've done it is that they've sent out these little bottles. It's 4 of them. You don't know what they are, and neither does Anthony Wills from Kilchoman. So Mr. Wills and of course his 2 sons are going to do this tasting tonight, and he's going to have a little guess at what ppm they are, what cask types they are, what age they are. So that will be very exciting to see. But of course, when you're watching this, I would have done the tasting yesterday. So this is Thursday, 25th of June. But I thought I'd give them a little taste, a little try, because I love trying whiskies without knowing what they are, just so you don't have any preconceptions, and then see what I think. And I have to say a massive thank you to one of my wonderful supporters. I think he might want to be anonymous, so I'm not gonna say your name here for everyone to hear. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm so excited to try these. So let's have a little look. The only thing we know is that we can have a look at the colour. We know what mystery dram is, their number 1 to 4, and what ABV they have. So this first one has a little bit of that bonfire in there. Very interesting. Let's have a nose on the third one. This is more this kind of classic bonfire Isla smoke. It's not overly sweet, but it's not overly fruity or overly something else. It's just this kind of clean, crisp bonfire note. A bit of fruitiness underneath. Yeah, but still quite fresh. And let's have a little nose on the fourth one. Ooh. This is very deep. It's that bonfire smoke, but it also has a very kind of heavy layer of fruits on top. Like plummy fruits. But almost like a bitter kind of, like a bitter, if you eat something that's bitter from a forest, like when I was little, there's these little roots that you can kind of peel and eat, and the kind of bitterness you get from those. Of course, bitter is a taste, but that's what I kind of associate with it on the nose. Okay, no clue, but we are gonna have a little taste of them. and then I'm going to save the rest until tonight. And then I'm also going to record after the tasting when I know what they are, so you can kind of look back on them and see what they all are, because we have no idea what age they are. They might not even be whiskey. They could, of course, be young spirits, they could be old spirits, they can be watered down, they can be not watered down, they can be some weird cask, can be all casks, I don't know, or if they blend the two together. I mean, I guess they keep it kind of simple just to give Anthony a chance. But yeah, you never know, because I would also think, I've met some of them before and they seem like a really lovely family, and they have these amazing stories. Like when they bottled the first bottles, they had to do it with a teapot because they didn't have any machines for it, and that time they nearly burnt down the entire distillery as well. So I could also see them maybe trying to catch their dad out, but I don't know, we'll see tonight. But let's have a little taste on this first one. There's definitely smoke there. Has a bit of kind of a charry, bitter element on the finish. And also a fruity note, but it's not overly fruity, which makes it difficult to guess. I mean, my brain wants to guess port, but I don't know. It's like something like Lochgorm, perhaps, that's only sherried, but I don't really feel like you get a lot of those sherried flavours coming out. What are you? But that's the fun of it, though. Because, I mean, I guess it's heated to maybe around 40 ppm. It's difficult to be able to taste it because all depends on how long it's been maturing, of course, as well. But it does have quite a powerful smoke, that kind of bonfire smoke that I associate a lot with Kilchoman. Interesting. Let's have a little sip on the others and see if we can make any sense out of anything. This is the kind of sweeter one. Yes, so sweet. Sweet and fresh and tropical, like that kind of pineapple note. I would guess this is a lower ppm because it doesn't taste as peated, but it's still a peated whiskey. So, I mean, lower, I don't know what that would be, maybe like 30. I don't actually know exactly what different ppms taste like, because I know there's kind of a big difference. Some that are lightly peated just have like a 5 to 10 ppm, and some can have like 20. So it's really different to guess, but it tastes like it's less overpowering smoke. It could also be that it's older, who knows? But I would probably guess that that's some sort of bourbon cask. So that's the kind of flavours I'm getting from it. Somehow it's making me think of juniper, which is interesting. It's just that kind of slight bitterness and the freshness and the kind of almost like a herby note as well. Hmm. And the third one, it's quite rich. I mean, it's a jump on almost 10%, so it'll be interesting to see in the ABV, of course. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a difference that makes. Wow, that's a lot of flavour. Oh, this kind of sweet. I would guess it's a bourbon as well, but it's get a lot of that kind of sweetness. I kind of want to guess that this is a cask sample because it has this kind of big flavour that you get if you try something directly from a cask. Probably guess a bourbon because it's quite classic in its flavours, but it's lovely kind of juicy, sweet bourbon. Interesting. I say that a lot, I know. Well, let's have a little sip on the fourth one. This is the one that just feels a bit more robust, like denser. What are you? I mean, This feels like it would be a cask sample as well because it has those kind of same rich flavors, but it's more towards being, this feels more sherried, I would say, in a way. Like that kind of mixture between sherry flavors that are quite warming and quite dried fruits and sweetness, mixed with this kind of high kick of alcohol because this is slightly higher at 59. It's this big flavor. It's wonderful. But almost a bit like strawberry on this one as well. But I wonder if it's like strawberry because it doesn't have that kind of raisin notes that you tend to get from sherry casks. I'm so intrigued. I feel like I'm gonna go back to the second one and then the first one once more. This is like candy on the nose. It's like tutti frutti candy. Now I'm getting peat blind because my pal's getting used to the peat, but this one feels like it's slightly less peated, but the other ones feel like they're kind of the same level. So I wonder if this one could be an older one. Because I'm also thinking that if if you're doing batches where you peat to less ppm, then what you tend to do is you have peated malts and you have unpeated malts, and then you blend them together to create either a high proportion of peated malt, which makes your whiskey more peated, or you use a lower percentage of the peated malt, which makes it lightly peated or unpeated, of course. But it feels like a big thing to go through to make like something in between. Because I believe Kilchoman has these kind of powerful smoky whiskies, and then they have, of course, the Drams and Islay. So I'm just trying to think if they would have done something that would sit here, or if there might be something that they're releasing a few years that we don't know that they're doing. It's so tricky. Because the others are so powerful in smoke, I don't think they're too old, and of course they can't be that old because the distillery is not that old. Interesting. Let's have a little sip on the first one again. I want to say port cask, but it could also be that I'm just confused because it doesn't taste like sherry, but it does have that kind of richer element, unless they've just poured lots of colouring in there, but I don't think they would do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just their new one, the Amburak, which is the port cask one. I'm so excited to see what they all are tonight. I mean, I don't know what guess I'm supposed to make. Age, super difficult. I mean, 5 to 10, 5 to 8. Or maybe that second one a little bit higher. I don't know. From what I've said, do you have any guesses? Please put them in the description below before you see the end. And then, of course, I'll be back in, for me, a few hours, but for you, just a few seconds. So I'll be right back. See you soon. Okay, so we're back. So I've just watched the tasting with Anthony and George Wells from Kilchoman, and I mean, what lovely tasting! I just love these. It's so much fun, and Anthony was doing so well. He was so bang on with his guesses. It's so incredible. I mean, it's so impressive seeing someone that knows their whiskey that well. And I must say, after the first one, when they told us what that was, I was a little bit worried that I had them all completely wrong. But I also, towards the end, wish I had said some more guesses and not kept it so safe, because some of them were actually better guesses than I thought they would have been. So the first one is Sanaig, which is so surprising to me. It's so dark. I actually have an old one here, so I'll pour that into a glass and you can see the difference. See if you can see there. Look at the difference in colour. I mean, that just goes to show, don't trust colour on whiskey. But we've actually tried them also next to each other. So the tasting pack Sanaig has this kind of charry, deep element. It's like quite heavy and quite charry on the finish, which is not at all what I expect from Sanaig. Sanaig to me has always been quite fresh and quite citrusy smoke, which is why I just didn't recognise it at all. But they also told us that because they of course do, so whiskey of course is made in batches, because when you distill in a copper pot still, you make a batch and then you distill the next batch and you get the spirit that way. So of course you can have some fluctuation in colour. And I also find that they are quite different in flavour. It's really fun because this bottle was actually the first bottle I got from my boyfriend. So it's a special one to me, perhaps that's why I love it a little bit extra much. This Sanaig is so sweet. It has these kind of lemon meringue pie vibes. It's quite lemony, it's quite zesty on the finish. It doesn't have those kind of charry notes. It just blew my mind, and I got a really bad self-confidence, and I was like, oh no, I got them all wrong and I'm bad at guessing. But it's so interesting being able to compare these batches just to kind of see how different they can be, and especially on the colour and on the flavour. It's curious. I actually think I prefer the old one, the one I have, slightly better, just because that's what I know Sanaig to be. But I mean, Kilchoman is such an impressive distillery. They do so many interesting things, and it's definitely one of my favourite distilleries on Islay. And I think they said that the Sanaig is about 70-30 in sherry casks and bourbon casks, so it's kind of a mixture of both. And the peated barley that they get is from the Diageo maltings, which has a ppm of about 50. So it's quite heavily peated. I think it's the same kind of barley that they have at Ardbeg as well. And the second one, which also kind of surprised me, I did guess that it was a bourbon cask one. I thought it was slightly lower in ppm, but turns out it's also 50. Yes, it's a 9-year-old 2010 Machir Bay vintage. So it's very different to what I expect the standard release Machir Bay to be, because it's always been almost a little bit too maritime, a little bit too dry for me. But now I think I really need to revisit it, which just goes to show that you shouldn't just stick on an opinion on whiskey. You need to revisit it after a bit to see if it's changed. About 90-10 I think with bourbon and then oloroso sherry casks. So primarily bourbon, and I do think it's a lovely one. Definitely lovely. I think because it has these kind of juicy, sweet bourbon flavours in it, it makes it feel less peated. I do think, of course, as well, that trying 4 different Islay whiskies next to each other midday is quite tricky. My palate gets quite overwhelmed with the smoke, so it's difficult to pick out these subtle differences. I thought now in the evening when we tried them, I got a better picture of what they all are. Probably still wouldn't have been able to guess spot on like Anthony did, but it is an interesting thing that when your palate gets used to it, which is why a lot of people don't like whiskey. They might try a dram the first time and just overpowering, especially of course with some of the peated expressions. But if you just take your time to sit with it and you just try a few different expressions, or you keep drinking it, your palate gets used to the alcohol strength, and it just makes it an easier experience. So it's very easy to get peat blind, I think. The number 3 was 100% Islay from 2013 with a lower ppm. So they used their own concerto barley, I think it was. So it's 100% Islay, which means that all of the barley and all the maltings and everything is done on the farm, on the Kilchoman farm, and it's around 10 to 20 ppm. It still feels like quite a powerful smoke, slightly subdued perhaps, but when I noticed this and tasted it again, I almost would have guessed it was something like a Madeira cask. It's so tropical and juicy and fresh, and I think this might be my favourite one because this is everything I want a bourbon cask peated whiskey to be. And this is just stunning. It sits so well. Oh, it's a great whiskey. And they also told us that they get their bourbon cask from Buffalo Trace because they have a really good consistency. And I know Anthony said that he really likes the Kilchoman spirit in bourbon cask because it gives it a really nice finished product. And I think I agree that 100% Islay bourbon cask was stunning. And this last one is also a 100% Islay, but it's full maturation in a PX cask from 2015. And this is the one I wish I would have specified because I thought this might be sherry. And I wish I had guessed PX because after trying it again, it really had this kind of depth and the sweetness that PX has. Very, very rich. But Anthony also said that he thought that this expression is slightly too young. It would have needed a little bit longer just to kind of get a little bit less prickly, a little bit less sharp, and get to what he wants it to be. And I kind of agree because it's slightly sharp, but I think it's very, very interesting to try these that are these kind of single cask releases because they have so much flavour and it gives you an idea of, because it's a fairly new distillery, it kind of gives you the idea of what happens to the spirit after time. And I'll be all super excited to see what they are doing in September when they're releasing a Fino sherry matured whiskey. Fino is of course a sherry you don't tend to see in a lot of different whiskies in their maturation, but yeah, we'll be super excited to see that. I would of course love to hear what your favourite whiskey is from Kilchoman. Is it perhaps your favourite distillery on Islay? I think it slowly might be becoming my one, but there's so many wonderful whiskies on Islay of course. If you like what I'm doing and would like to support me, I would of course be absolutely over the moon if you would consider using my affiliate links with Master Malt, the Whiskey Exchange and SMWS. All of that information is in the description here below, as well as links to my website, my Instagram and Patreon if you're curious about that. And as always, a massive thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon, and of course especially to the supporter that got me this tasting pack. I'm so happy I got to do this. Seeing Anthony do that blind tasting was just such a lovely experience, and I mean the family just seems so funny and genuine, which makes me like the whiskey even more. But I hope you all had an absolutely wonderful day and looking forward to a nice weekend. Slán